Okay, welcome, everybody. This is a City Council Finance Subcommittee meeting, and it is Monday, December 23rd at 6:30. We have Counselor Givner is on Zoom. We have Counselor Sullivan, myself, Counselor Devine, and Counselor Ocasio, and Counselor Bartley just walked in. So I'm going to make a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. All those in favor?
Aye.
Counselor Sullivan, might as well do the roll call.
Yep.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Ocasio, yes. And Counselor Givner, yes. Okay, so item 1 is the minutes of the December 9th meeting. Does anybody have any changes or questions about those minutes?
Motion to accept and approve the minutes of the meeting.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you. And then we have item number 2, ordered that $33,000 as follows: pay engineer to senior civil engineer for professional engineering services, $33,000, and that is our usual. It's usually for 2 months at a time. And just to give you some good news is that it looks like we may have an engineer shortly. So I'm sorry, I'm just still looking for my papers. Oh, there they are. So Victoria will stay on for a little bit just during the transition. So that's really the usual continuing to pay the engineering services of Victoria Houle. So if I could have a motion that we do that transfer.
Motion to approve the transfer.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Is Aaron Vega here? Okay. Lisa Ball? Okay, so we'll go on to the next item. Okay. Chief Katalevitz is here, so we'll go to item number 3 and item number 4 as well. Item number 3, Devine ordered that there be and is hereby appropriated by transfer in fiscal year 2025, $20,000 as follows: from firefighters to repair and maintenance of vehicles. Chief, you want to, I make a motion that we take that up for discussion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Chief, you want to tell us about the $20,000 transfer for the vehicles?
Yes, 15,000, we had 15,000 cut from it during the budgetary process as it was, so it's restoring that. And we've had a fairly costly repair to one of our apparatus with it's the exhaust regenerative system in one of our engines. So it got a little more costly than normal, plus just the regular, inflation that goes to all of these things. We're finding that we didn't have enough money in there.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of the chief?
Okay.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion that, I'll hear a motion that be granted.
Yeah, motion to approve the transfer.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. And then the next one, Chief, is ordered that there be and is hereby appropriated by transfer in fiscal year 2025, $250,000 as follows: from firefighters, $250,000 to overtime, $250,000. Hear a motion to take it off the
Yeah.
table?
Yes, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, Chief.
This kind of goes, remember we talked during the budgetary hearing that we're going to have to move money around. We're trying to make a 2% increase it work with the 3.5% raises the firefighters and deputy chiefs received. So this is just kind of moving it around. We didn't fill firefighter positions because we wanted to hold that money to see where we would need it within the budget. And at this point, it's time I'm hoping this will take us pretty much to the end of the year. We have about 31,000 left in the account now.
Okay.
We after this. So I'm hoping this should get us through the rest of the year.
Okay. And I'd just like to welcome Counselor Jordan to the Finance Committee. Does anybody have any questions of the chief while we have him here? Counselor Jordan?
Yeah, one quick one. Chief, how does this compare us to last fiscal year? So with this 250 year over year, what did you spend on overtime in fiscal '24, and what will this put us for '25?
This will put us fiscal year 25 to 650 or 657. I have to double check my numbers, Counselor, just to double check what I spent in fiscal, but I do remember we had a move of 125,000 last year to get us there, but I would have to double check, and I could get that for you, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, if you could let us know, or at least Chairman Devine, or shoot it around as an email before the next council meeting, please.
Yeah, that would be great. Anybody else?
Will do.
Okay. Hear a motion to accept the transfer?
Yep, so moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, I'm looking to see if, I don't see Aaron Vega here yet, and I don't see Lisa Ball, so I will, the police department here, Sergeant Zerhide. Item number 5, we take it up, ordered that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provision of the BJA FY 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program of $35,099, and there's no match. Move we take it off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Sergeant, you want to talk about this?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me today. This year's, this is a JAG grant. It's for equipment purchases, and this year it comes in at just over $35,000. We're focusing on 3 main areas that we're going to be spending this money on. The first is our records department. It's the area when you first walk into the station that you see when you're speaking to somebody. That is our records department. And currently, everything we do, we communicate with our records department. They confirm everything on their systems. So when officers are out on the street, they're always talking to our records department, and the radios that are in there are outdated and they're no longer working. They're constantly going down, which causes delays both to the public and to the officers doing the job. So we'll be upgrading their radios and some of the furniture in there. We'll also be upgrading our telephone system throughout the station. We'll be replacing all of our telephones and getting new ones due to the fact that the current system that we have is no longer supported. So when anything isn't working, we aren't able to fix it or replace it any longer. That's going to be another high cost one that we'll be doing. And the third big thing is, as everyone knows, we changed over our records management system from IMC to Mark 43. Mark 43 is an internet-based records management system. So we'll be getting a cradle point, and my apologies for the technical terms here, but it's basically a Wi-Fi signal, or it's a cell phone signal for the station that if the power ever does go out of the station, the computers will run on the cellular signal, so officers can still do their reports and access the system. And then there's some other odds and ends built in, but those are the 3 main programs for this year.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Counselor Jordan?
You're doing that all for $35,000?
Yes, the quotes for the telephone system were roughly $12,000. The records system, the 2 radios that are in there were about $15,000. Then we're going to be replacing their chairs. They do have old broken chairs, which was about $1,000 or $2,000 to replace those. And the Wi-Fi or the cellular signal wasn't that much money to add to our plan. So we do plan on staying under the 35, and like I said, there are a few little things else that are built in there, some desks, chairs, things like that. But those are the 3 big items for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor.
You're welcome.
Oh, did you have a question? Because Counselor Givner has her hand raised, but if you have a question. Counselor Givner, you have your hand raised?
I didn't have a question. I just think this sounds really good. It seems like an appropriate use of funds regarding the Wi-Fi. If the system goes out, that you can still work, and I think that's really important. So I think it's really great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Motion to accept the grant?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Sergeant. Have a nice
you so much.
holiday. And
You
then
too.
we'll go up to item number 6, ordered that there be and hereby appropriated by transfer fiscal 2025, $21,843.57 as follows. Pay administrative assistant, tax collector 2, specialist, pay revenue collection specialist for $21,843.57. If I hear a motion to take it off the table?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. And the tax collector is here, I see her. Laura,
Good evening, counselors.
good evening.
So the reasoning behind this was to make the position that is much, much more than just an admin assistant. There's a lot of cash handling that happens in this position and a lot of, a requirement of being very accurate and handling large amounts of cash. So we are trying to change the position from an admin assistant to a revenue collection specialist, which is a different salary scale, but it was relatively minute. I think overall it was less than $1,300 more over the year, which I have the money in that line because I had trouble filling this position.
Questions, anybody?
Have we done the ordinance change?
I don't know, I haven't heard
Okay.
it.
Laura, have we done the ordinance change to move? Do we have this position on the books already in the Schedule A, the revenue collection official?
Yes.
Okay. And we have it at, what's the salary going to be from admin assistant to this position? You said it was,
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but the hourly is 24.19. And like I said, the difference was, I think it was right around $1,300 for the year.
okay. And you're going to post the job?
No, so this job is already filled. We brought Megan on back in October, so there's no retroactive pay or anything like that. It would start once you guys either confirm or what happens with it with City Council. But Megan is being paid currently at the rate it was originally posted at. We were going through an MOA at the time of hiring Megan because we had just lost another person who had only remained in the position for about 7 days.
Okay, so you hired somebody into the Megan, into the administrative assistant job, and now you want to upgrade her position into this job.
Correct.
Okay. And this position's on the books, but vacant. You don't have anybody else in the revenue collection position?
No, this is just, it's essentially a new title that goes along with the responsibilities of this position that I felt was more than just answering phones and correspondence, et cetera.
So you're creating a new position in your office then? And you're transfer, because this wasn't in the budget, the revenue collection job.
Correct, but it's the same rate for until July that she's currently being paid as an administrative assistant. So it's a title change, and then the salary scale is just slightly higher than what she is at right now.
And for a full fiscal year, it's going to be the same, there's only a $1,300 annual impact for fiscal year, what'll be fiscal year '26.
Correct. And like I said, because we struggle to fill this position, was money in that budget line that would much more than the $1,300 difference that it would be.
So you had an admin assistant position budgeted or two admin positions, but one of them is unfilled and one of them is Megan, or is it just Megan? And there's one
No,
budgeted?
it's just Megan.
Okay. How many total positions do you have in your office under you?
It's myself, the assistant tax collector, Yuritsa, and then it would be this revenue collection specialist, which is Megan. Megan is now the admin assistant, but would be switching to this title.
Okay. So you had 4 jobs and you're staying with 4 jobs?
No, we have 3.
Oh, hold on. You have you, the assistant, then there was somebody else, and Megan.
No, there's an admin.
No,
And now it's
we
the-
had an admin, she left. We hired a new admin and she stayed there for 7 days and then she left. And then we have Megan, who was hired. And like I said, with all of the large amounts of cash handling, I felt it was really important to update this position to reflect those responsibilities and, to make sure that we were focusing more on what this position really is, which is a lot less of, answering the phone or email correspondence and a lot more of dealing with the taxpayers, being the first point of contact and handling all of the cash that comes into the office.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm clear. I must have missed it. There's you and you have 3 staff, or it's you and 2
No.
staff?
It's myself and 2 others.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions, or?
As long as the position's already created, I guess it's a 1,300 annual impact.
Do I hear a motion to?
Motion to
Madam
approve.
Chair?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have your hand up. I saw it. Sorry.
That's okay, thank you. I was just wanted to also clarify, so the transfer is for 21,843, but the position increase is 1,300, so I'm just a little confused as to the amount being requested for transfer.
So it's because it technically is created by the auditor as a new budget line because it's a new position. So we would be closing the administrative assistant line with the funds that are in there and transferring it to the revenue collection specialist line. So there's no budgetary increase or decrease for this year. It would be for fiscal year '26.
Oh, okay, thank you. And also, so does that mean you'll be looking to hire an admin assistant?
No, the office runs very well with the staff that I have. Hopefully, everybody stays.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the transfer?
All
Second.
those in favor? Aye. Okay. The only ones I see here at this point that we can go forward on is item number 7, because I was asked to take up the collective bargaining items, but I don't see Lisa Ball here yet. So what I'd like to do is go on to item number 7, if we could. Motion to take it off the table.
We have a gentleman here
Is that for,
from the law department. Oh,
oh, okay. But that not has anything to do with this.
correct.
Okay, so why don't we take this up?
We'll do 7.
Because it looks like Laddie R. is here from the War Memorial.
Sounds good.
Ordered that there be and hereby appropriated by transfer fiscal year 2025, $30,000 as follows. Capital stabilization, $30,000 to War Memorial, repair and maintenance of the building, $30,000. And do I hear a motion to take it off the table?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. And Laddie is here, and my understanding is this is, to, and he can certainly answer it as well, Carl from the DPW was unable to be here today because of the holiday coming up, but the War Memorial Commissioner is here, and this is for waterproofing of the elevator pit as we are getting water in there, and we just renovated the elevator. This is approximately $8,000 to $10,000. And then also repipe the steam returns. That's approximately $15,000. $5,000 was added for unforeseen issues that may arise. So, Commissioner, if you'd like to tell us about this transfer?
Good evening, all. Thank you so much for allowing me to be present virtually and for speaking on behalf of Carl. With the request for our elevator, unfortunately, after our repairs, we did notice that there was an area that water was seeping in. We are really looking forward to be able to allow the longevity of that repair, since it was so extensive, to create the possibility of having this approved to be able to put all the right measures in place to be able to collect all of the water and prevent further damage to our new elevator system. So we're really looking forward to be able to have the right measures put in place. Unfortunately, this was not something that we could have foreseen. So due to that occurring, we do have to allocate different funding for that particular request. With being able to fix the issues that we're having in our basement as well, we have been working very diligently in maintaining and making sure that all of the routine maintenance that had been missed in the past or have not been able to be completed are being moved up to par. So being able to have this approved and work on our basement to work on the lines would be extremely effective and efficient. Seeing that the weather now is going to ask that we have our heating system in place for the longevity of the winter.
Okay. Questions? Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, excuse me, Laddie, but have they determined where the water is coming from?
So at this time, and again, since I'm speaking on behalf of Carl and I didn't have the opportunity to really have the exact project plans in front of me. So the leak is coming from the lower level. What has occurred is in the steam pipes, our return valve damaged. So therefore, it is not properly draining as it should. So it created for our entire basement lower level to have three different areas where the leakage had occurred. We have been able to stop the leakage and secure it in specific areas, but it is going to create additional work to be able to make sure that as the repair allows for the proper drainage, it's moving the water in the correct place.
Okay, so the water is getting in there from the condensate system, the condensate pipes on the steam system. That's what I'm hearing?
That is correct, yes. The way that the flow was going, it's kind of, if I'm explaining it correctly, it's a backflow. So the condensation is creating for the leakage to occur because of the backflow.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm familiar with these systems. It's just I don't understand what waterproofing of the pit will do. It's preventing the water from getting in there in the first place, which is to do with the whole condensate system, which is on here as part of the return. Waterproofing itself doesn't make much sense.
I know that
Have we received estimates or
if I'm not mistaken, there is an estimate as far as the work plan to correct the entire area. With the waterproofing itself, again, I do apologize. I'm not exactly sure if that's for the entire surface area within the basement or just a specific area that's going to need that waterproofing. I can certainly look back at my notes and emails and replace that comment, but I unfortunately cannot speak to that exactly. I do apologize.
Okay. And I see we're also adding an extra $5,000 to this request just as a insurance policy.
That is correct. So seeing that it's such an old system and we want to make sure that we're getting the best quotes and working effective and efficiently, what we're doing is making sure that in the event that we do need additional funds, having that in advance so we don't have to incur any additional requests. So kind of giving ourselves a little bit of a buffer, which is something similar that we did in the past as well with the construction that we had repaired with the elevator, just because we may have a possibility that, you know, our estimate can be higher or lower based on timing, equipment, availability of parts, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. The repairs that were done, anything under warranty? I'm not sure if that would have anything to do with the leakage.
I believe the DPW has warranty with the request of what has been repaired. The exact like timeline, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Counselor Jordan?
Yeah, thank you. So just on one component of this, the reason for the waterproofing, which interestingly enough appears to be the more, I saw the estimate to actually fix the steam pipes, it was about $15,000, which seems perfectly reasonable. But the waterproofing of the pit is because it came from a broken pipe, but if we fix the pipes, why do we need to waterproof the pit? I mean, it seems like once we fix the problem, there should be no need for waterproofing. If the waterproofing was a result of there's a leakage because there's an underground water source under the building or something, that would seem reasonable to me. But if we fix the pipe, then why the waterproofing? That seems like a waste of $10,000.
Thank you for breaking that down. And with the current design that's in place, I think the request is based on, you know, preventing any future incidents from happening, not just from that pipe, but from other pipes within that area. I can certainly tabletop this question and, you know, follow up via email to see if there's any other more descriptions that entail or give a little bit more detail as to why the specific project. Again, I think that this is, again, a preventative measure to have that area waterproofed in order to prevent from this scenario from happening again.
Laddie, my other question that I wanted to ask you is the problem was identified back in May. So why is it now in December we're just now being asked to fix these steam pipes? I mean, that's quite a while ago, 7 months, and we're
Yeah,
just
does
now
it-
getting the request?
I believe our first request in May, there was a transition and a shift within the coverage of what we were working on within the DPW. So I do know that part of the lag for the request was with the transition of employment. So we had a shift in who was in the position. So there was a little bit of a lag between getting requests and work done due to the change in the department heads. As well as we did not have the appropriate people giving us the information. I was not readily available between a couple months that we were looking to try to get this information to play. So I can definitely account for not being available to have the right parties present to present this any sooner. And I am aware that there also was a transition between the department and leadership.
Yeah, it's just, you know, we are counting on our DPW if we got leaky pipes to not wait 7 months to fix a broken steam pipe, you know, that we've got to be, I get transitions and, you know, I know Sean went over to the school department and all that stuff, but at the
Yes.
same time, I mean, that is a long time if this has been, hopefully it hasn't been leaking for the last 7 months. But, okay. I wanted to ask you on the elevator itself, did we get to the point where it passed inspection?
Yes, sir. We did have that inspected. We do have the certificate as well, saved at the War Memorial in an archive. So we are clear and good to go on that.
Okay. Has this work already been done and you're asking us now for the money to just reimburse the account? Or is the work pending and it hasn't been done yet?
Work is pending.
Okay. On a side note, speaking of elevator inspections, did we ever end up getting the inspection at the Dwight Street parking garage yet? Or what's the status of that elevator? if you know.
Dwight, I'm not familiar with that information. No, I do apologize.
That's fine. Okay.
And if I could just briefly circle back to the leak, we have been diligently making sure that the leak has not been extending. We have put things in place, again, to save the preservation of the building. We've done all the measures that we potentially have been able to do with the DPW, with the assistance of our current tenants in the building to ensure that, we were able to handle the scenario and the situation that happened within our basement and the leak.
Okay, I guess my question, Madam Chair, would be if there's no major objection that this has already waited 7 months, it might be nice to have Carl come in and explain why we need the other 10,000. Seems like 15's definitely justified, but the rest of it, I don't know, Mike, what do you have, what are your thoughts?
I agree, but it's waited more than that. It's waited 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah,
right?
I'm reading this here in,
My suggestion,
I looked at the building and provided a proposal to waterproof it back in 2009. So, and from what I'm reading here now, it's not just that there's an actual crack in the foundation.
Oh, okay, well, that's a
So,
separate issue, right?
Yeah, a crack in the foundation would have nothing to do with a leaky steam pipe.
Correct.
So, I mean, the only thing I'm thinking now, if it doesn't seem that time sensitive, it is.
Could we wait 2 weeks and have Carl in when he's back from vacation, or whenever you're meeting again?
well, I was going to suggest that, I think our next city council meeting is January 7th, perhaps.
I think so.
Maybe we could tentatively approve this and then have them come in on the 7th, or have them come in on whenever we have another finance meeting and delay this.
To the chair discussion here, I would not want to approve it. I wouldn't mind sending it without recommendation, so we could at least hear something from them, at the full council meeting
Okay.
and move it, at least move it forward.
Okay,
Either that, or the other thing we could do is we could table it, and then if he comes forward with the full explanation as to why the 30,000 and what's really going on, we could always remove it from committee too on the Tuesday. I mean, whatever we think is best. I mean, all of the above we could do,
well then, how about a motion to table?
Yeah.
And then we can take it up as soon as
Yeah.
we can get.
All right, motion to table then, 7.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, first of all, I'd like to apologize to Russ, who is in the chambers. I apologize. I was under the impression, from this afternoon, that Lisa was going to be here. And also, my understanding is that Jeff Jones, UFCW, is on Zoom. And Neve, are you here for the Council on Aging?
Yes.
Okay. If you'd like to come in, Jeff, come on in. And, I'm sorry, Russ. Come on in and sit anywhere you'd like. Just make sure you push the button so the green light comes on. Yeah, that would be great. And my understanding, if I might, it's going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to be taking up item 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Do you have that in front of you? No. I'll read them. Item 10 is from Professional Accounting, Holyoke Police Department, to Nutrition Director. The audit is $12,264. The Nutrition Director is $913,000. Utility Person, Social Work Coordinator, Health Services Provider, Driver, and that's all the Council on Aging Memorandum of Agreement. Are you familiar with that?
The Council on Aging memorandum, yes.
Okay.
Those must just be the transfers.
All right, maybe we could take them up. It's up to you guys. Then item 11 is settlement agreement by and between the City of Holyoke, UFCW Local 1459, Council on Aging. It says employee. Is that for one person?
No.
No, it should be
the whole unit.
employees. Then item 12 is redlined agreement, settlement agreement by and between the City of Holyoke and the UFCW Local 1459 Council on Aging employees. Then item 13, order that they're hereby appropriate by transfer $48,826 as follows, and there's several different items there. Do you have that?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, were you going to say something?
Madam Chair, just wanted to note that the 13, 14, and 15 are a different agreement. So while Russ may be here for all of them, it would be a different union rep for the other, those last three.
You thoroughly confused me. Okay. So the UFCW is for,
Council on Aging.
right, but
11, 12.
Jeff Jones.
Yes.
And I don't see you on my screen. Okay,
About
okay,
now?
now I do. Okay, so Council on Aging is up through item 11. Then there's another Council on Aging, item 12. And if Jeff, you're telling me that item 13, 14, and 15 are not Council on Aging.
Those are PSA.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
Those are PSA.
Okay, so why don't we take up, let's see. Okay, so we'll take up item 13. Nope. Sorry, I really apologize, but,
As a friendly suggestion, we do 10 and 11 first,
Well,
and then
he-
go to 12, and then go to the last 13, 14, 15?
yeah,
If it's three different things,
yep.
maybe?
It's just, I wish I had a little heads up on that.
Sure.
Okay, let's go back here. So, item 10 is, I read that, professional accounting from the Holyoke Police Department to the nutrition director. And where's the rest of them? And utility person, social worker, health services provider, driver, and that's the Council on Aging Memorandum of Agreement. And that's what you're going to be speaking about. Okay.
So you have two documents related to Council on Aging in front of you. One is the settlement agreement, just a couple pages long, and then you have the tracked contract, which is the longer document with the red line. So basically, we negotiated for quite a while, actually, to try and reach a successor agreement. So what you see in the settlement agreement, if you look at that shorter document, there's not a lot of changes to this contract. We mainly dealt with the money because, as Neve Rodriguez and Jeff Jones would tell you, there was some conversation about the difficulty in, keeping employees over the Council on Aging and finding employees. And so we adjusted their pay rates. But why don't I start, and we'll go in order.
Okay.
So number one, we modified the hours and overtime language. This has really kind of been a perennial problem, and we talked about this the last few contracts, trying to work on some language. So we came up with some language that deals with overtime versus comp time, how it works, who approves it, and I think this language kind of gives the employees and the director some flexibility as far as whether it's overtime, whether it's comp time, and if you get comp time, when do you have to use it, and how much notice do you have to provide, that type of thing. So that language is really trying to streamline how we do overtime and comp time at Council on Aging. The wages that you'll see, and you saw this with DPW last contract as well. So we agreed to $1 an hour increase each year for 3 years. The one little exception here is we had two employees that were hired kind of before we started to have the wage pressures. So Neve Rodriguez has been hiring people at the steps where she can hire people and get quality people. These two were kind of hired before wages started to go up in the last, 5-6 years. So we have an adjustment to them because they were really falling behind other people, even though they were hired before them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you see two people listed there, which is a little unusual, but that's the reason for it. The deleting section 4 under wages, that was a clause that said that there would be some type of merit pay with this group, and that actually doesn't happen with this group. So we just delete, we proposed to delete it, and the union agreed. The city's driver policy, that's going into all the contracts. So it's basically if you're using city vehicles, what are the parameters around it? It's a 3-year deal back to July 1, 2024. And then the next page is just reiterating in the appendix the same wages I just told you about. So that's all I have. You do have a tracked contract in the Council on Aging, but there's not a lot of changes, so there's no point in walking through the whole.
Yeah, we just have to take them each one at a time, each item. So this was item 10. And I know some people have just had an opportunity to read that, so I don't know if you have specific questions. Counselor Jordan?
Yeah, I did. Did you have the overall financial impact? I believe the ordinance requires a financial impact analysis of all contractual change. What's the overall financial impact for the year?
Yeah, that I know. I believe that Tanya did prepare it. I don't actually see it on your, because item 10 seems to have some transfers for this group, but I don't know. That doesn't look like it would be everything, but I can't say without Tanya weighing in on that.
Okay.
I was really here just to present the agreement, the financials, and not.
Right.
All right. Okay.
If I may, that does cover the full financial impact. The original budget was approved with a 2% increase for staff, and so the 12,000 approximately sort of finishes out paying the rest. So that is the remainder of the impact.
So that's for a half a year, though? Or is that, because we're looking here at an increase, actually, I just found something a few pages in
My eyes.
on the back, which says $25,000 impact, 24,793.
Right, and some of that was already taken care of in the budget cycle because 2% was approved at that time. So the 12,000 covers the rest of it, and yes, those are all of the positions because each line often contains more than one position. So the driver line, for example, contains 2 positions.
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
I think so. So let me just go through here. So I just want to understand the staff. You have a kitchen supervisor who's paid $47,500 a year. 2 kitchen assistants. Looks like you have one that's, I see, this must be 2 positions presumably. You have one that's paid $26,000 and one that's paid $40,000?
One is a part-time.
Oh, one's part-time? Okay.
Yes.
And then you have a senior social worker making $56,000, a volunteer coordinator making $41,000, a social worker paid $46,000, an LPN making $52,000, a PT wellness instructor $23,000, a driver for the Council on Aging $36,000, or is that 2 positions? Or is that 1 person?
That's 1 person.
Okay. And then you have another driver, $36,000, and then a program assistant / dispatcher, $40,000 or $41,000.
Correct.
So, Neve, compared to say 3 years ago, because one of the things I'm trying to track is growth in government here. Did you have the same number of positions 3 years ago, or have we added any new jobs?
We actually have fewer positions.
Four additional positions?
No, I said we have fewer positions.
Fewer positions than you did, say,
Yes.
3 years ago?
I'm pretty sure 3 years ago, if not 3, then 5 years ago, but overall, we've made the department leaner.
Okay, all right.
We used to have for example, we used to have 2 LPNs on staff full-time at 40 hours.
Okay.
We now have 1 LPN at 35, and we have 1 part-time wellness instructor at 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So we've created efficiencies where we could.
All right, we appreciate that, by the way. Question,
His
drivers.
wife's name's Jenny.
You know, one of the things that we're obviously very concerned is that everybody is taking the utmost care. And I know this is super important to you because you do a super job over there, Neve. We're very, very proud of the work you do and the facility and everything. I wanted to ask you, obviously drivers, that's a very sensitive job and we want to make sure they do an amazing job. Do they follow like a random drug policy like we would have for our police or DPW workers and such? Do they have that so that we make sure everybody's okay when they're driving our seniors? I'm just wondering.
Well, they're under the same policy as other drivers in the city through the citywide driver policy. But we have not done random testing, per se. It's something that we could look into, and I could talk to Kelly in personnel about that.
So Russ, what's our driving policy relative to that topic? And obviously, some of these we've had to negotiate those in. I know we have it in police. I've brought this topic up before. I've brought it up. We have it in police. We have it in DPW. We do not have it in the fire department. Something to my consternation, we still don't. I don't know how we haven't gotten it in there when we have people driving, 15 and 30 ton vehicles around the city at high rates of speed, going through red lights. But do we have that for these drivers who are driving, obviously some of our most sensitive citizens, our seniors? Do we have those protections?
So you can do, so DOT, if it's a DOT driver, you can have random drug testing.
Okay.
If it's not a DOT driver, then you can do reasonable suspicion drug testing. So, or after an accident, we could deem an accident to be reasonable
Let's hope it
suspicion.
don't get to that point, yeah.
But
These are regular vehicles, as I understand
Yeah, so
it,
they're
right?
probably not-
So I don't think this would be a DOT subject.
But you could negotiate reasonable suspicion drug testing. I think Neve's correct, though, that this contract doesn't have that currently.
Is there a reason we don't? Like, did that topic ever come up in these negotiations? Because, for these driver positions, I mean, God forbid you're talking massive potential liability to the city if.
It did not come up this round. I don't know if it ever has in the past, but it was not raised by either side this time.
I don't believe it's ever come up in the past.
All right.
Okay.
So is the union open to that? And it seems to me something that we need to raise as an issue. And if it hasn't been raised, let's
Don't
raise it.
forget, good questions, but I don't want to be negotiating anything.
I'm not negotiating it, but I've been, it's really beyond negotiating at this point. I've been laying it out that anybody who's operating city vehicles, it's more of a policy issue. And personally, I don't even think it's something that should have to be negotiated, to be perfectly honest with you. It seems like it should just be common sense. And you shouldn't be paid extra to come to work sober. And to drive sober. So my concern is that, we need to, these are serious. These issues need to be getting raised by the people in charge. And that I'm counting on union officials, department heads, and otherwise that this topic needs to be getting raised. And I would encourage you all to speak to it. I'm on the fire department about it too. So police and DPW, I appreciate they've already addressed it and taken care of it. So I would encourage you to figure it out. Anything, what should we take away from the Article 9? Is this new, the comp time, or?
So I can address that driving issue just for
Oh,
a
yeah,
second.
please do, yeah.
So regardless of whether you have language in the contract, I'll tell you how I handle cases like that. So
Okay.
if Neve called me and said, hey, I think I got a driver today that could be under the influence of something.
Right.
My advice to her, and usually this would be through Lisa Ball and Kelly, would be that person immediately comes down. The director would observe to see if they have reasonable suspicion, like, bloodshot eyes, they're slurring, they can't stand, something like that. If that's the case, then I would instruct her to call down, the employee with a union rep and say, listen, we think we have reasonable suspicion, we're gonna send you home. We're gonna give you a chance to go take a drug test or an alcohol test. But if you refuse, we believe we have reasonable suspicion to discipline you.
Okay.
So many times they'll agree to go get tested, and sometimes it's a positive test, sometimes it's not. But that gives the employee the ability to say, hey, okay, I'll prove that I'm not. And if they don't, then we're going to use the evidence we have against them that we believe they were.
Okay.
So that's how it happens even without a policy.
Okay, that's good.
I'm not saying it's not a good idea to have a policy, but
Right.
it would
In the
happen that
interim,
way.
Yeah. okay.
Anyway.
All right. So we do
Kind of an
that.
understood rule.
Right.
Yeah, I do it all over the state. That's the way I handle those situations.
Perfect. Thank you, Russ.
Excuse me, before we continue, I just have a question for Counselor Bissonnette. Attorney Bissonnette, it's been brought to my attention by Counselor Ocasio that she volunteers at the senior center a couple days a week, maybe 3 hours at a time. Should she be entering into any votes tonight?
Strictly a volunteer?
Yep, she doesn't get paid.
No, there'd be no conflict there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So Russ, I believe the question now is on the Article 9, the comp time change. Tell us a little bit about the current policy and what you're proposing to change here.
So I think, Neve, that might be a better question for you as far as how you do it now exactly, but I can tell you why. What we were looking at doing is allowing, well, first of all, by statute, you can't require somebody to just use comp time.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we're using comp time frequently, but the reality is the employee has the option of either overtime or comp time.
Okay.
So if we're going to have comp time and overtime, we wanted to bake into the contract specifically how it would work and who's deciding. So the director has to decide, I need you for more hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that happens, there's a discussion between them about whether it's going to be overtime or comp time. If it's comp time, then we put in a limit about how much you can accumulate and how quickly you have to use it, because we don't want people, just keeping comp time. And, sometimes you see in some cities where people leave with like thousands of hours of comp time, which you don't want. So we tried to work with the union, and actually we
Isn't
went
there
back
an
and forth.
FLSA limit, I believe? I know years ago we had that issue in the police where I believe we were ultimately told it's either 240 or 280 hours
Yeah, there is a limit. I mean, we didn't go anywhere near that.
Right, I see it's like 21.
Yeah, we're just looking. It really was more of a scheduling issue for Neve so that she can manage her department,
Mm-hmm.
and also allowing employees enough flexibility where they can actually use the comp time that they earned.
Right.
So that was the balance, and I think this is where we landed ultimately, which I think should work well for Neve, and I think it should work well for the employees too. I don't know if Neve wants to add anything to that, but.
Neve, you want to add anything?
Sure, I mean, everything that Russ said, and I think it works well for our department. It gives people an option. It keeps the overtime budget down. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, actually.
So that's items 10 and 11. What's going on with item 12? Is that something else at the COA or?
No, 12 is just, it should say red line contract.
Okay.
That's just the longer version with the tracking, because you
Got it.
had
So
asked.
one's the abbreviated and one's the
Yeah.
full. Okay.
Last time I had come in a couple years ago, you wanted the track contract. So
We do
that's all that-
appreciate that, Russ. Thank you. I feel comfortable myself on
So
10,
10 and
11.
11 and 12?
Yeah, so I would
Okay.
make a motion to receive and adopt items 10, 11, and 12.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I think
We're up to 13 and.
you're all
13,
set.
14, 15.
You're all set, and I apologize for.
Do you have PSA too, Russ?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
here,
sorry.
13, 14, 15. And you should
give
see
up.
somebody, Frank Gentile. Is he on the line? Because he's the union rep for PSA.
Is he with us, Patty? Mr. Gentile?
I don't see anybody.
He was on a moment ago and he just went off.
Well, maybe we'll start and he'll come back, or
Okay, and that was for item 13?
14 and
14 and
15.
15. Okay, well, while we're waiting, do you
I
have,
just texted him too.
Okay.
just to let
and do you have more that you need to discuss with us, the professional? Okay.
Yeah, I can do the same thing with that group if you want.
Want to do that?
So this one's a little bit more, there's more changes to this one. So it's probably easier for you to actually look at the tracked contract of this one, which is the redlined version.
That's number 15.
Yep.
You'll kind of walk us through.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we can walk through, I'll quickly go through it kind of page by page. So if you go to page 5,
And this is the professional contract?
yes.
Okay.
So these are all your management level employees, department heads and professionals. So you'll see at the top of that page where AFSCME is now going to be the union of record for this group. Before it was kind of a local association.
Right.
So AFSCME is taking over. There's a typo there, which I've already fixed. Municipal is spelled wrong. And then so throughout, because of that change, everywhere where you see association, it's changing to union because AFSCME is a union, not an association.
Can I ask you a question on that issue?
Sure.
So the reason they had a local group and not affiliated with a union previous, of course, if you go way back on this PSA, there's somewhat controversial from its origin. I know this was a big, Counselor McGivern was always high on this issue. And the issue there was, these are managers who are in a union. And the question is, should management be allowed to be unionized? And are we going further down that road? It was of different sort of split recognition. And is that, one, advisable? Is it permissible? And why? This seems like we're now taking a further step where it's actually a national union. Years ago, I used to be a member of AFSCME, so I'm familiar with AFSCME. It's a good union. But my question is, from the city's perspective, is that advisable to have management in a union? And then number 2 is to further double down on that by recognizing AFSCME.
So it's not common to have this level of the organization unionized. It does happen. Chicopee has the CPMEA, they're unionized. Agawams are unionized. And the law itself, and it's not common just because they typically don't organize. You know, at that level of organization, they want to negotiate their own contracts, that type of thing. But it's not because it's not permissible, because they're not, everybody on this list is not the very top person in their department. So like DPW, you have Carl Rossi, he's department head. He cannot be in a union because he is the manager of that department. He sets the budget or works with you on the budget, presents the budget. He makes hiring, firing decisions. He makes discipline decisions. Nobody below him can make the independent decisions like he can. So, and if you look at a school, it works the same way. Like a principal in the building can't be unionized. The assistant principal can be.
What about Class A here, though? What about Unit A? What would you like to tell us about that? Those are the heads of all those departments.
Yeah, but they have either the boards above them or the mayor. So
But they're department heads.
they're department heads, but they
So that's no different than
Wait.
Carl Rossi, though,
No,
right?
Well, Carl Rossi has the right to fire and discipline, where
Right.
these don't.
he's a director.
So some of these are directors too, but they actually don't have, they either have a board or the mayor that has the right to actually make the final decisions. So I'm not saying that these, you know, in many places, they're not in a union, but once they're in, they're in. So whether it's AFSCME or a local association, that has no legal effect on the city, in my opinion. So it's a union's a union. Whether it's local or whether it's AFSCME, you have the same obligations to that group. So they can grieve, they can arbitrate, they can file unfair labor practices. The group chose to go with AFSCME. That was their choice. They have the right to do it. So I don't see that as, they've existed for, many contracts long before I've been here. So there really isn't anything you can do about it at this point. It's
Because you feel basically
I just wanted a little historical
Yeah, sure.
fact. Thank you. This was, the association was formed when Mayor Dunn was the mayor, many, many years ago. But not everybody was in the association. I don't know what their, quote, dues were. So the association's been around for a long time, and this, to me, is the first time, if I'm correct, that there have been a collective bargaining agreement. Did they actually have a election? And,
So they have had a collective bargaining agreement because I negotiated it
okay,
2 or 3 times at this point before
okay.
this one.
I haven't been back for a
Yeah.
while, so.
Yeah, they have had an agreement.
okay,
Right
and-
before me too.
Yeah, and is everybody that is in the union, as a, because the association didn't have everybody in the
So-
association.
so
It was kind of their
everybody-
choice.
Everybody listed here
Okay,
is covered by the contract.
okay,
Some of them may or may not pay dues. So if they don't pay dues, they're covered by the contract, they get all the rights and benefits. They have no right to vote on the contract and whether it's going to be ratified. There's, the law changed recently where they would be represented by the union if there was a grievance or something, but they may have to pay the union to have that representation. So they're still covered by the contract. If the vacation's 15 days, they get 15 days because they're covered by it. But they may or may not be paying dues.
their agency fee.
Well, agency fee is gone.
It's gone?
Because there was, that was taken out of the contract because there was a Supreme Court case that said.
Janice, right?
Yeah, it's a Janice.
Yeah, okay, because,
So now it's either pay dues or you don't. But if you don't, and you have something come up, they may charge you for that grievance to defend you.
okay, maybe I'm missing this. The employer shall deduct union dues or voluntary agency fees from the pay of employees. Is that in the past?
So, no, the voluntary language is if I chose, I don't want to pay the dues, but I'll voluntarily pay the agency service fee, which nobody does. But
Right.
the union wants it in there just in case somebody chooses
Okay.
to. That's usually, the only type of person that might do that is if there was some like religious objection to paying dues, they might do the voluntary.
Right,
I haven't actually seen that happen, but they ask for it. But you
Okay.
cannot mandate anymore that agency service fees
okay.
apply.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, great questions, and I'm glad you went over that, and it's an important thing. But I just want to be clear because I tended to be generally in the Joe McGivern school on this, which was that, again, I believe these collective bargaining agreements even predate, as Patty states from Counselor Dunn, this predates even my service here, which is 30 years at this point. These have been around for a long, long time. I guess the point that I wanted to understand is that, in your opinion, Russ, just to close the loop on this, that because the city has already given collective bargaining to, like, the Group B, I have less of an issue with. It's the Group A that I have an issue with. Like, if I were setting this up today, Kevin, if I were mayor, I would never agree to that. Like, that's,
So in bargaining, the
you
city,
couldn't get rid of that at this
well,
point.
the city proposed to change this.
Oh, they
this
did,
time,
okay.
But we couldn't insist on it.
I see.
So basically, we got to a point where we just couldn't, because you can't go to mediation and say, we want to remove positions from the union. You can make a proposal to do it. But if they say no, when you get to mediation, you need to drop that proposal. You can't mandate a proposal like that.
Because the horse is out of the barn at this point.
So we proposed it, it didn't happen.
Okay. Way back when, the city, theoretically, if that was the city's position, shouldn't have allowed it, right?
At a point way back, because our argument this time was they supervised some of the other people in the same union.
Exactly.
And that's,
That's unusual.
unusual, really shouldn't happen, but it happened so long ago, you're stuck with it at this point.
Right, right.
Is Frank I see Frank Gentile here. I don't know if
okay.
that's something that we want to talk to him, or is that
Yeah, I mean,
just
if, I don't know
both
if
of
Frank
the,
wants
So
to
one
weigh
thing
in
I
on
should
it.
tell you about that is there was a different rep that negotiated this.
Okay.
He just resigned like a few days ago.
oh, okay.
So Frank is here and he could talk generally probably about this, but he's not going to have a lot of specifics about what we actually talked about.
Okay, all right.
But my point is, the city, I guess where I was saying is, just wanted to make sure we're not at really any sort of inflection point where it's interesting that they're going to ask me, but there's no materiality to it, because whether it's the city isn't really changing any of its rights or position by now having an official AFSCME versus the local union per se.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the difference is they might have more ability to finance an arbitration,
Right.
you know, that type of thing. But as far as their rights under the contract, they've always had the right to arbitrate,
Right.
you know, since this went in place many years ago.
Right. You know, I guess I don't know, I don't know if Frank wanted to say anything, but I guess the reason why Group A is problematic is, again, one, union members supervising other union members, but putting that issue aside is the mayor needs to be able to, it's like imagining sort of your cabinet, if you're a new president, and you can't even get rid of all the department heads should be hire fire at this point, you know, and it's kind of concerning when you have all these different key positions. I will say some of these folks do have various terms of office, like the Veteran Service Commissioner. None of this in this contract mitigates any other of the mayor's rights that he has under the charter or any of these other things. Like, there's a term of office, like the Veteran Service Commissioner still has to be appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the city council, that kind of thing, you know.
So that would be our argument. I think the union might argue otherwise. It could end up in arbitration.
Yeah.
It's just never, at least it hasn't come up since I've been here.
Yeah.
But that would be a matter for debate, I think, if it came up.
Because the Park and Rec Director serves a 5-year term.
Yep.
And it has to be, the mayor appoints, and it has to be approved by the city council. I'm just making sure that, is there anything in this document that is waiving or us weakening any of we all take an oath of office to the charter, including the law department and everybody else. I just want to make sure we're not doing anything here that's subverting the city charter.
So I would say that if there's anything like that, it's already in there. Nothing has changed that we put in that would do that.
Okay.
So now, is the fact that they're in here and they have term limits and the charter says they have term limits, but then there's language in here that talks about discipline and termination, those conflict? I mean, that's in there. There's conflicts between your charter and these, and I think there's also some conflicts about the titles. But that already existed, so to the extent we could, we changed some of it, but it's, you know.
Because I don't think my point is no mayor and union has the right to do something that conflicts with the charter.
Yep.
Period. So I just want to make sure everybody understands, so that if we ever go play this tape back again at some point,
Yep.
you know, we're all on the same page that the charter's that's like the U.S. Constitution for Holyoke.
Their charter is, in my opinion, but there's Department of Labor Relations decisions kind of on, it depends on the topic and what the charter says, but they don't always go in the city's favor on the charter issue. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So you can't say 100%. The charter should supersede the contract, in my opinion. Whether the Department of Labor would always agree with me on that point, you know, that's debatable. But
Yeah, because I don't want to get into a situation where, well, we actually have had it, but I didn't see it get raised. Like, I'll give you the good example. We had someone Patty and I know well, the former Park and Rec Director. He was not reappointed. The council ended up confirming the successor. There was a whole debate whether or not, if we didn't ratify, he gets to continue to stay. But in the end, the council did.
Right.
But we never had this issue come that direction, like, oh no, he gets to stay because we're going to grieve it and fight it. But
and it shouldn't. I
Yeah.
mean, my position is it shouldn't, because
Okay.
the charter says
All
what
right.
it says. Now, what I would also say is you couldn't just now change the charter to say, all right, we're going to change all the contract benefits and that type of thing by charter.
I see what you're
That
saying.
wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, but what's pre-existing?
But you already have a charter that says there's term limits, that they would have been in place probably before this contract.
Oh, for
was
sure,
in place.
yeah, for sure.
So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Counselor Sullivan?
Thank you. So, Russ, does the AFSCME here, do they represent, besides this group that just transferred to them, any other groups within the city?
Let's see, AFSCME,
Is that AFSCME 93? Do you know?
yeah, UFCW covers DPW and your DPW supervisors.
It is 93, but
Police
It
and
is
fire are
93, okay.
separate. Council on Aging is UFCW. I don't think AFSCME does have another group here. I think this. might be-
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is Frank Gentile. So, yes, we do have the Holyoke Public School custodians. I just ratified the Holyoke nurses, which is also going to be part of 1302. I'm trying to think if we, we've
Well,
got,
yeah, Frank, those are on the
Oh,
school
I
side.
don't-
That's
Okay, yeah,
the
I'm not
city
sure.
side. I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
think on the city side you have
Okay.
anybody else.
okay,
I only represent the city. I don't represent the school.
okay, very good.
But on the city side, I think this is your only group. Do you believe that's
Might-
true?
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
don't think
We
so.
didn't have
I
anyone
think-
until
Yeah, I
just,
think it's.
the other day.
ASME does have a lot of groups in this area, but and it sounds like they have quite a few on your school side.
when I
Okay,
was
so-
with them, I was a state employee.
Yeah. So, if I understand this correctly, if half of them are not paying their dues, the city could move to decertify them?
So
This group?
any union, whether AFSCME or local or, if they're affiliated with somebody or not, if they don't have at least a majority, so plus 50%, then they wouldn't be able to continue as long as the city raised the issue or the employer.
So when the city does payroll, are those dues taken out at that time, or is that something they have to pay?
Yeah, the city would have a record of dues being taken out.
usually it's in their contract that they would have that write-off, it's called. It's not a write-off, what's it called? It's a sign.
Authorization.
I'm going back to my
But that's,
former,
to get to
position.
50%, I mean, the city would be aware of that if that ever happened, because that becomes kind of an obvious situation when it does happen. I've had it happen recently in a town in Eastern Mass, where they were down to like 20%. So they were decertified.
Yeah, I just want to caution everyone that the employer doesn't have the right to initiate those discussions or persuade people to be either active payers or non-payers.
Yeah.
They have, that would be interfering with union business. So if it happens, naturally, then yes, then obviously you can do whatever you want to do, but you cannot actively persuade, membership involvement or otherwise.
Yeah, that's right. It's not in the Eastern Mass situation, it was just people stopped paying and the employer eventually noticed it and the union was decertified. But you can't be requesting employees to do that.
I
or
didn't
something like
suggest that
but-
in any
Yeah.
way, form, or
No,
manner.
I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that, because not all employers know that. I had some that have actively encouraged member disinterest in participating in dues paying. So I just wanted to be clear, and I wasn't suggesting that anyone was saying anything to that nature, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because I wouldn't be doing my due diligence.
Understood.
I just, if I may, I just want to give you a little background where I'm coming from, especially with AFSCME 93. Many, many, many years ago, I was a assistant business manager for OPEIU Local 6, and we represented the office staff of AFSCME 93. So I'm familiar with that. I don't think the same people are there. I would suspect that they are long retired, but they were a great group of office people. I want you to know that.
Well, I was with Local 6 as well. And George Noel, which you probably know him. Mary Mahoney.
Mary Mahoney, Jim Mahoney, Dick Brennan, yeah,
Yep. Dick Martin.
yeah. Long time ago,
Yeah,
but, yep,
yes, so I was there not too long ago. But yes, I do know some of the players over there as well.
great,
And I
great,
appreciate you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
very good people over there. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Mike Sullivan?
Yeah, and just so you understand completely, my concern was in dealing with this contract and this association now as part of this bigger union, was the fact that they were holding up one position vitally needed by the city, right? That called, that in itself called for a more competitive salary, and trying to tie that throughout a raise, holding the city hostage for well over a year, right? And doing a lot of damage to the city. And trying to spread that out over the entire union membership, who were very well paid and were already in a contract that had been negotiated. So that was my big concern about this move.
Right.
So
So
and that was
typically,
just-
if there's a situation, I can't speak to exactly the issue that you're referencing, but typically in a situation where there is an employee that is doing something above and beyond, and the employer comes to me or the union and says, hey, we need to pay this individual more money to be competitive, normally I am agreeable to that, so long as it is equitable for everyone. You know, so if somebody's doing something above and beyond and they deserve that additional compensation, typically the union is not going to fight that. We want as much money, and we also realize that it is hard to hire people at this point, and we have heard that everywhere. So we know sometimes even within a contract, we're dealing with employers coming to us and saying, hey, these positions have to be prioritized. We can't fill them anymore at the going rate, you know? So we are understanding of that as long as it's equitable, you know? But I would never, if there is justification for it, I would never hold an employer hostage on that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because that's not been the history for the city. Thank you.
No, yeah, and don't get me wrong, it could, and I don't know the specifics, so as long as it was, there was justification for that additional compensation, I would never hold anyone back. I've done it in many locations where the employer came to me and said, we've got to do this because we can't hire people or whatever, and there was justification, and I had no problem doing that. Again, I mean, because I understand we need people to do the job. We need that. So I understand, and we want to work in concert with the employer.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and we'll see how it goes going forward. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Counselor Jordan?
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask if Russ could keep chugging away here. Looks like you were on personal days, and then I think there was a pretty big change to vacation time.
Yeah, so personal days, and this is throughout the contract, there's a number of changes like this. With personal days, there was language about getting 4 personal days per year, but it didn't say, there was no restrictions about how you use them and everything else. So we added some standard language from basically other agreements you have in the city about how you can use them, whether you can roll them over, all that type of thing. So that was really cleanup. Vacation language, there's two changes. One is instead of weeks, we refer to days, which is a much better way to do it. You know about the Holyoke rule, so won't get into that. But the other thing that changed is that these are, I believe they align with the ordinance employees. So you just changed the vacation of employees under ordinance, and so I think these align with that. So you have.
Well, that was very controversial, and some of us don't feel that was validly adopted.
Okay.
So just so we're all clear on that, that was the other issue. That was our 2023 discussion.
Yeah,
And
but
that doesn't mean,
yeah. But
so that was the logic, so now we're going to give it to everybody?
So, well, it was.
That's expensive.
I think some of these employees, I think the logic was, one, we have some trouble hiring like the engineer. We couldn't get them. And part of the reason I think was that we weren't giving very much vacation day up front. So I think the logic behind administration was let's match what we're doing with the other employees that are kind of similar level to these employees. Other than that, I don't know what else I could tell you on it. I wasn't aware of the controversy.
Oh, yeah. There was a whole debate how we couldn't afford that. There was a whole large group of us that didn't want to give it to the ordinance, that did not support that ordinance, could not afford that ordinance. They increased everybody an extra week. They created a rule that with the mayor's blessing, you can get up to 4 weeks. They also gave away extra personal time, very expensive ordinance change. It was at least $65,000 at the time for just that group. Lord only knows what all this is going to cost. Do we have a financial analysis on the cost of the vacation to all these people? And by the way, how much in total time do they get now? They've got all these weeks of extra vacation plus 15 sick days.
Well,
plus, don't they get, now they're getting 4 personal days, and they have how many holidays?
Well, they already got the 4
that's
the
comparable to the private sector?
private sector, I don't know, but the public sector, yes. Actually, the public sector usually is 3 days, but you already had 4.
7, 8.
For personal. But vacation, so the 2 changes for vacation is, yes, they went to the ordinance numbers. The second thing is, and this took a long time to negotiate, but on page 8, you'll see that they can no longer buy them back at the end of the year. So what was happening before is you could just hold all your vacation days and be paid out for, as many as you wanted. So as of July 1 of 2024, we're taking, that section 4 is deleted. It's considered null and void. So that actually is a pretty big change because that was costing a fair amount of money to pay out. Not everybody was using it, but the people that were, that's a substantial amount of money because every day is worth 0.5%. So if you got paid out 10 days, it's a 5% raise. So the union did agree to that ultimately, but we increased the vacation to match what your other employees were getting under ordinance
And these changes were ratified.
by the union.
Yeah.
So
what did you get back in exchange for giving everybody an extra week of vacation?
well, it wasn't just an exchange, but it's part of the same article. But what we got is if you look at section 4, what they could do at the end of a year if they didn't use their vacation is be paid out for it. That's actually pretty unusual. Normally what you can do is roll over like 5 days. You can't be paid out for vacation at the end of every year. So if you're getting 30 days and you decide you want to be paid out for 30 days, that's a 15% raise. It's just not, it was happening too. We had some employees that were, getting paid out for their vacation at the end of every year.
Okay.
That's very unusual language, but now it's out of your contract.
Okay, so that's removed, so it's use or lose.
So now it's use or lose, and they can carry over up to 1 week, which is section 5. But that's typical, because that's really there, like if we have a really high workload in a particular department, they can't use it. They can roll over a week. Bereavement leave, that was really just changing from funeral leave to bereavement leave, because that's the term everybody uses now.
Mm-hmm.
Longevity, so you'll see on page 10 to 11, part of the exchange in this contract is that we increase the longevity effective July 1, 2025. So there's no appropriation for this year, but next year the numbers go up. And you'll see that there's a new $500 amount from 5 to 10 years, which right now there isn't one for 5 to 10. And then there's a $50 increase from the 20-year category. It went up $50. And then the 25-year category went up $50. And the last one is the 30-year category. If you stay here for 30 years, you get $1,750. That aligns with some of your other contracts. Now, you'll see the exchange for some of that is the wages are at a 2 to 1.5. It's a 3-year deal. And what we've done if you look, so that's page 12.
This is going back to July of '23?
July of 23, yep.
So that's a different fiscal year. So Russ, how are we able to do that? Like, we're beyond July of '24.
So I've had that come up with the Department of Revenue. They were overseeing Pittsfield
Okay.
years ago. They kind of took it over. And if you're in the middle of bargaining, you can't settle. Eventually, you're going to pay the retro back to that year. So you're supposed to hold over the money until you actually have to pay it out.
So DOR approves you could go back to a prior fiscal year like that?
DOR approved that particular settlement, and I haven't seen auditors object to it when it's contract bargaining.
Because there's a state law that says you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do it with, I mean, you normally can't do it. But collective bargaining agreements, it is actually fairly common that a contract will be negotiated past the date. And what you're supposed to do is just hold over monies to pay for it.
So we're supposed to reserve for it, essentially.
You should be, yeah. Which my guess is Tanya did.
All right.
But
I'll ask her.
I can't speak to that for sure. But.
All right.
So let me see. So the performance, that's section 2, we deleted all members shall be eligible for performance pay. That's only because we put in a whole new merit pay system. So you'll see the wages are 2 to 1.5, but you're going to see later that we put in this performance pay system, which wasn't really being used before. So I think the mayor started to try and pilot it under the old system, but it just didn't work. The performance evaluation system, the form itself wasn't really usable. So anyway, we put in some language here that makes it clear how we do it. It's based on an evaluation every single year by its combination of department heads and mayor or the board evaluating each employee covered by this agreement. And then there's a chart which lays out what somebody could get if they perform well. So if you look at...
What section is that?
Well, it's page 12 to 13 is the article on performance-based system.
Mm-hmm.
So that lays out how the system works. And then, I'm just trying to see in this tract contract where it is.
Kevin, number 4 on page 12.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so and this doesn't start until July 1 of 2025, so again, there's no appropriation for this year. If you don't meet expectations, there's unsatisfactory, 0%. If you meet expectations, you'd get a 0.5% greater increase than the regular wage increase. And if you exceed, you get 1.5%. So basically, if you look at July 1 of 2025, the wage increase is 1.5%. That's what you get automatically. If you get a meets expectation, you're going to get 2% total. And if you're over, you exceed expectations or exemplary, then you get a 3%. So basically what happened in that year is the base wage is lower, but they have the chance, if they do well, to get a little bit more. So the mayor felt that was important with this level of the organization to have some type of merit pay. And so that was the compromise the group made, which I think is a fair one because the 1.5 gives employees a base COLA. And then everything above that, you gotta either meet or exceed expectations on an evaluation. And the evaluation's a much better tool too. So it's pretty clear. It's more objective than the last one. The last one was kind of subjective. If we keep going on, page 13, life insurance, we just took out language about fiscal year 1990. That obviously doesn't need to be there. Probationary period,
Could you just mention what pages you're on, just so we're.
that's
following?
page 13.
Thank you.
Yep. And then we're up at the top of 14 under probationary period. We added some language about what happens if you're promoted, because it wasn't clear how the probationary period works when you're promoted to a new job in this same group. So what we added is if you're in for 6 months, you have a 6 month probationary period in your newly promoted job. And if it doesn't work out, then you're either returned to your prior job if that hasn't been filled, or if it has been filled, then you're fired. So we put in just clear language about how that works. Now, the next few changes, when you look at the bottom of page 14 to the top of 15, that's no strike. Previously, that was the whole article was just about no strike. The union proposed in adding union security, and this is basically very standard language from other contracts about the fact that we can't essentially harm the union or try to undermine the union. So that's in the agreement. That's by law anyway. So you can't do the things that are listed in this contract language. If you look at the next page, 16, there was a clause called construction, or an article. That's really a zipper clause is what they call it. I'm not sure why it was labeled construction before, but we changed that. The grievance procedure, page 16 to 17, that article, we were just changing association to union, like I said before. That's true of the non-discrimination clause too. That's simply changing the title because now they're a union. Article 18, layoff and recall. There wasn't any language about what the notice would be if we're gonna lay somebody off. So we put in a 14-day advance notification. The next page, Article 19, discipline. There wasn't any language about discipline, so we put in what the language would be as far as what our rights are. So if you're outside the probationary period, they would have just cause. That would have been read into the contract anyway by an arbitrator. So once you're in a union, they assume you have just cause. So this is helpful for the employees because they can see it in writing, but it's also helpful for us because it's clear when you're in a probationary period, you don't get it.
Right.
Job postings, again, there was nothing in there about job postings. Your other contracts have language about it. So we put in language at the request of the union for that. Hours of work and flex time. So this actually was one of the reasons it took a long time to settle the contract. What we've put in is the base number of hours, 35 hours, but with an understanding that that's, other than special projects or things that are really taking a lot more time during your week, there's an expectation that this group does work, more than 35 hours to get normal work done, like emails and things like that. But we added a clause that they could have flex hours if the specific circumstances happen. So that would be evening meetings, special projects. In those cases, they can request flex hours, which most cities will do. I mean, if you're at a meeting like this until 10 o'clock at night, the next day or sometime during that week, you might come in later. So basically, that's the compromise we came up with. They wanted comp time, which we did not accept. So job descriptions, the next article, that's
On this one, what did the current language say? It was silent?
silent.
So why is the city's position stronger with this language than silent?
So I don't know if it's stronger. I would say it's more clear. So this was something similar to this was really happening already. The problem was it depends on your supervisor. It depends on, discussions between different groups and different departments in your city. This makes it the same throughout the whole city. So I don't know that it's necessarily stronger. It's definitely clearer. Because I really don't know what was happening with different people in this group prior, at least consistently. I don't know how it was working.
In the event that an employee works more hours than the regular hours above in a given work week due to the evening meetings, the employee can request flex time. from their employer which will not be unreasonably denied? What if the employer says, no, I want you, I don't want to give you flex time. Once in a while, you got to come in extra in addition to your regular schedule.
So
Why would that help the city?
I think it says unreasonably denied if I was in your spot, I would be saying it says unreasonably denied, and the employer, if he unreasonably denies it, then I would certainly question that, but.
yeah, you'd have to have a reason to do it. But if you had a reason to do it and we could defend it, then you'd still be able to say no. I would think most of the time, if you have a special meeting or an evening meeting or special project, I mean, if the special project is, if somebody claimed, well, I have a special project, I needed to work an extra 20, 30 minutes because I had some emails that came in, I would say that's not a special project.
Right.
So what we talked to the union about is these are things that are like above and beyond. I mean, you have certain positions in this group, like you have some positions where they don't do evening meetings. It's not part of their job. They don't have to do it.
But we're talking again,
And then,
this is all department heads. They could be here at any point.
yeah, you have some positions where they have evening meetings every week.
Right.
And so what those people were saying, and I think to some extent it's happening already anyway, is that they're able to flex their time to make that work. So if they're here 4 hours extra some night, they're, likely already not working some hours later in the week.
Was there ever before any language that said that they have a 35-hour position?
No, I don't think so.
So why would we want to say that?
Because I don't think that matters because that's what they're doing now.
But it's
like they're
but it's
on site.
actually, yeah, but
35
it's
hours.
not that they would actually have the right to a 35-hour schedule. Why? They work as needed, effectively. Generally speaking, they work 35, but this week you might have 42 hours. Next week you might be 52, and then the mayor might say, well, next week do 27. Okay?
Yeah.
But this is saying that they have a 35-hour schedule, and now they are entitled to flex time, which cannot be unreasonably denied in the event that they do anything outside of 35. Why would management ever want to approve that?
So, like I said, this is the reason we didn't have a settlement for all this time, because we couldn't come up with language that would work. And the union wouldn't agree to the language that we have here, actually, until the very end. So it was really about, we were trying to create something where it's very similar to what we're already doing. So like this 35-hour.
Well, they have no right to flex time today, and
They don't have a right to it, but they're getting it. There's a lot of employees.
well, that's because some mayors want to give it away, some don't. I mean, it seems this is hamstringing the power
Yeah.
of the mayor. I mean, just because today's mayor wants to give it away doesn't mean tomorrow's mayor may not want to.
Well, I don't think this mayor was not in favor of this for a long time. It was really a discussion about comp time. So we said absolutely no to comp time for the whole time. We said no to overtime. You're not in that type of position, most of the employees in this group. But what we decided is that they are working 35 hours, and it actually in some ways is better that it's clear that that's what it is, because there could be an argument on the other side that they could work less than they are now.
How can you work less?
Well, because there's nothing in the contract that says what they work right now. So I don't think that this does us any real harm, because it's laying out what we're already doing, essentially. There really isn't any different, and it's not just this mayor. That the flex time thing, I think, has been going on for many years.
Okay.
Is my understanding. I agree with you, though. It's not my favorite provision in this contract.
Oh, that's
Sure, but-
a dandy. Yeah, if I was management, I would never want this provision here. That is not good for the city. So congratulations to the union for getting it. But again, these are supposed to be the department heads. And now they're basically saying, you have to give me flex time. If I was the mayor, I would come in and say, okay, great. You worked an extra 2 hours last night because you had to go to a meeting. Great. I need you on deck for tomorrow. And You know,
Well, yeah, and I would say it's not hour for hour either. So what we're saying is flex time means if you were out for 5 hours one night, it doesn't mean you're getting 5 hours throughout the next week or something. You're going to have to go to your manager and say, hey, I'd like to, because this is really what's happening, I think, now is they might come in an hour late. You know, it's not, but that's up to discussion between the appointing authority and the person making the request.
let's see, it says right here, it says, in the event that an employee works more hours than the regular hours above in a given week due to evening meetings or special projects, the employee can request flex time, which cannot be unreasonably denied, and then the request must include an accounting of the additional time. If granted, the employee has to use it within a month.
Yep.
All right.
That part I would say is probably different because I don't know what they've been doing as far as when you have to use it.
Okay.
All right, so next item is job descriptions. That article is simply really reflecting what we would do legally anyways. The union requested that we put in something about job descriptions because it was silent before. Basically what it is we impact bargain. If a job description changes and there's no major changes to it, we just impact bargain, which means we tell them it's happening. We don't have to come to an agreement, and we can implement. If we were saying, however, that there's some major change to a job, they're doing something totally different than they used to do, that's a mandatory subject, and we have to come to an agreement. Separability, that's again standard language that's in most contracts. For some reason, it wasn't in this one. Pay and time procedures on the next page. There again wasn't any language about how they get paid, how frequently, all of that. It's in your other contracts, so we added it here. It also makes it clear they have direct deposits required. Joint Labor Management Committee, this is simply a body between management and labor that can meet to try and resolve issues before they become grievances. Union business, again, it's an article the union requested. That's something that's in other contracts as well. It just, for whatever reason, wasn't in your contract, or the PSA contract. The last one's check off, which is the union dues issue. That wasn't listed either, so that's in there. And that's really all of the changes in PSA.
With respect to union business, you said that even though this language wasn't in here before, they had the right to meet with the individual employees previously on premises, all these rights that are enumerated here.
Yeah.
These were already pre-existing rights?
Probably
this
past
is-
practice.
Well, this is not what the union requested, but what happened was I said to them, so after the Janus decision, when that changed federally, Massachusetts changed their law to give the rights that are listed here. So this is actually new under Chapter 150E in response to Janus going away. So in response to that, they gave the rights that are listed here. So that would be required legally.
Okay.
Anyway, without.
So this is consistent with state law?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what we've been putting into the other contracts too, because it's just to be clear what we can and can't do.
Okay.
And I actually essentially just quote the law, so there's
Right.
nothing additional there.
Right. Obviously, if they have a legal right to something, then that should be honored. Let's see here. This checkoff system, this is consistent with what the state law says?
Yes. Which is basically, it can only be required if you check off that you want to pay dues. Otherwise, you don't have to pay them.
Okay.
So it has that same language about voluntary dues, which you asked about earlier. That's in there, but like I said, Frank, I don't know if you even have you ever had anybody do that?
I know of like 2 people that have done the agency fees,
Yeah.
but it is, like you said, it is usually for like religious purposes. And as a matter of fact, I think that's the case in both instances.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is definitely not utilized very often, but we like to have that option there for,
Yeah.
but, that's not my ask, but that is one that we have to ask.
Sure.
Did they have the 3 personal days in the prior contract?
4.
It was 4, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
It was in there before, it just didn't have any language about when you can take them, how you can take them, that.
Okay.
That is definitely an improvement, I think, for the city, because there should be restrictions. It's not a vacation day, so.
Okay. Thank you, Russ.
Sure.
Are we up to date on all our articles?
I think so.
Okay, so, do I hear a motion to accept? I think it's, let's see. I think we did 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15?
So I think we did everything through
15.
13. So
We didn't do 15?
I think we already approved 10, 11, and 12.
Right, but the
No.
red line of 15, agreement by and between the City of Hoyoke and Hoyoke Professional Supervisors, we did that.
That's what we're voting
Yeah,
on now.
15 and 14, so,
And 13.
yeah, so we're on 13, 14, 15 we're voting on now?
Yes,
Okay.
for 13, 14, and 15, yeah.
I'm all set with that, if you are.
I am, I just have one
Okay.
observation here.
Yeah? Counselor Sullivan?
Thanks. And this is for our fellow counselors. We'll note in the transfer, right, that 21,000 is coming from the mayor's contract negotiations, right? 11,000 from personnel. 6,000 from veterans pay investigator. Now, when we look at the budget cuts that were proposed last year, several of these were items that were proposed, and sure enough, here they are as surplus. And one of them, veterans vacation buyback from the department head, is not approved and should never have been added to the budget. So I'm just want to make this perfectly clear to all my fellow counselors as we get into the next budget session, what we're looking at and where these monies are coming from, which were surpluses, and now we're hearing one of them, one that should never have even been in the budget. That's it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Counselor
Yeah,
Jordan?
I will be voting against 13, 14, and 15 for two reasons. One, I didn't support the add-on of an extra week of vacation in the ordinance. The Class A employees shouldn't have gotten it. That thing was a runaway train. Number two, so I certainly won't be saying, well, I'm voting for it here to be consistent with what I had already voted against. So that's a deal breaker for me. And number two, I'm against this flex time language. This hampers significantly management. Again, these are not regular workers. These are the department heads. If a department head has to come in here for 2 hours, that's what you're signing up for. Okay, I'm not giving you an extra 2 hours off tomorrow because you got to come in here. Now, if they want to work something out fairly with the mayor, I'll leave that to the mayor's discretion. But to give it as a right that you're guaranteed a 35-hour work schedule and that you have this guaranteed shall not be unreasonably denied flex time, that's crazy. Management should never give a contract that says anything of the remote. That should be left up to the discretion of the mayor. If this mayor wants to work it that way, more power to them. But the next mayor may have different opinions on that, and we certainly shouldn't put it in writing in a contract. The language we had before of being silent was better. It left it to the mayor's flexibility. It should remain that way. And those two provisions are absolute deal breakers to me. So for those reasons, I would vote no on this. I would ask them to go back and do whatever it is they're going to do, but I would not vote to fund those.
Okay, first of all, I don't know that, this is a contract that's been voted on and ratified by the membership, okay?
Yep.
I don't see where you can say, as a counselor, go back and start all over, or pick out,
subject to
or
appropriation.
pick and choose what you want to take care of. You're certainly welcome to vote no against this, but this is a duly negotiated contract that was ratified. So you're free to, if you want, we can do them separately rather than take them all up together. So I would like to hear a motion to take up item 13 and vote on it, either yes or no, and then I'll take a roll call.
Well, first of all, I don't think we need to do that because the whole point is just let's all remember our authority here as a legislature. We cannot negotiate the contracts.
Exactly.
Having said that, though, what they come up with has to be approved for appropriation, and if we don't approve it, that contract doesn't happen because it's subject to appropriation. So if we don't fund it, it's denied. And so that is the council's check in this check and balance of government that we have here. So the others, it's just sort of you're taking acknowledgement of them. There's really nothing there. So I think you should just keep them all as a package. I think we've traditionally done it that way. I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, you could just say received if you wanted to with the other two, but nevertheless, I would just as soon keep it as a package. I don't think you need to separate it. And then I would say
Well, if you
denied
want,
13, 14, 15.
if you want to make a proposal to put 13, 14, and 15 together, I will take a roll call with the finance. There's 5 of us here tonight.
Sure.
So if anybody wants to separate them, let me know. If not, we'll take up item 13, 14, and 15, and I will call the roll. Does that sound, anybody have any questions, and somebody want to second that?
I think we already had a package of 13, 14, and 15 together.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Of what are we voting on? The
13,
package?
14, and 15.
As a package?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to call
And
a
the
roll.
motion is to approve?
I'm going to call, yes, and I'm
Okay.
going to call the roll.
Okay.
Counselor Jordan?
No.
Counselor Sullivan?
No.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
No.
Okay, sorry, fellas. We'll have to let you get back to the bargaining table. Nothing
Okay.
else we can do.
Well, we'll see what the full council does, but
Yeah,
the
we
motion
could
now
try
is to
that, but
deny.
it's motion denied. I apologize
Okay.
Okay,
for
thank you.
your hard work. So,
Thank you.
thank you and safe trip home and,
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
no. Frank, please say hi to Mary Mahoney for me. I still have 2 items left.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Have a good holiday.
Okay.
Thank you, you too.
What other
Thank
two
you.
items?
Thank
Okay, so, okay, thank you. We have item number 8.
Oh, I apologize.
We have
Skip
item
over
number
something?
8.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just, with everybody,
Okay.
okay, so item number 8 is ordered that there be hereby appropriated by transfer in the year fiscal 2025, $2,066 and $40, 66 and 40 cents as follows from professional office supplies to telephone uses. A motion to take that off the table.
moved.
And what this was is Leslie Ward, the building commissioner, combined together small amounts of money from various different line items to put into the office supply line so that she could transfer that amount to the purchasing department to pay for the phones that we just got in order for all the inspectors of the department. They were using their own phones. So this is to give them phones, and also the interim procurement officer, who is no longer interim, he has left. Let's see, many of the department staff did not have cell phones to use at work, so this will give them that opportunity, which I think is a much easier to have them have their own cell phones for the office. So that's what that's about.
So, go ahead, Counselor. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to make a motion to approve it.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, so these are folks that we give them a cell phone now and we're buying them new phones?
No, they use their own cell phones.
Are we giving them a monthly fee or anything?
I would assume so. It doesn't say that here, but I certainly would assume that.
So I'm just saying, is there a cost to offset that? And then I'm just making sure everybody's crystal clear that when we, and by the way, just so everybody's crystal clear on this, because we've done records requests on cell phone records, that everybody understands that counselors will start making, if needed, records requests on cell phone records. We've had to do that when they're city-owned cell phones. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing here.
What this,
And- Okay,
what it is right now they have to use their personal phones, and of course they would get, paid for using that. But what this will do is essential work tasks like photography and documenting their inspections. Now they will actually have a cell phone from the department, contracted by T-Mobile, and discovered that they were able to obtain appropriate smartphones at no material cost, just a monthly service fee. So this certainly is a better idea with the office cell phones than them using their own. So that's what that's
And
about.
this is just for building department?
Yep.
Okay. It sounds on its face to make sense, because in a lot of respect, if, you're in the building department and you're using your own phone, but we have that many inspectors, or is this all the way down to, this is 8, how many phones? 8 phones?
I don't
10
know how many
phones?
inspectors there are, but there certainly is, that's what they do. That's their job, to go
What-
out and inspect, and they're using their own phones to take the pictures. And at some point, they have to be professional and use the city phones rather than use their own.
Right.
And that's all this is about, and it's a transfer of a little over $2,000.
It looks like the mayor only approved building. It looks like he turned down community
Transfer going from
development.
building department to the purchasing department.
Looks like there was a request for 3 phones for the community development, but that was not approved. So we'll leave that at what it is. It seems like a reasonable request. It's just, I don't want to necessarily, hopefully the mayor is going to control it in such a way that we don't have everybody coming in looking for a cell phone now, because
Well,
this can get pricey too. If now we say, all right, these guys have, now it's umpteen number of people in the DPW have phones, and then this one has phones, and that one has phones.
This is strictly transfer going from the building department to purchasing department, and it's a city provider, is T-Mobile, and they were able to obtain smartphones at no material cost, just a monthly service fee. And it's $2,000, and it does look like it's for the building department, so that they can do their inspections and take pictures of that and those inspections.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Is these phones or just gonna be just one particular phone, like, they
Can you
cannot
speak into your
upgrade?
mic? I can't hear you.
I said if, these phones are just certain particular phones, or can they upgrade it? Like whatever they have now, they just, that's what they're
Whatever
gonna
they
use
have
it?
now, they use their own.
And that's it.
This is completely their own. These are brand-new, different types of phones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is for work use only.
Correct, correct.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This sounds pretty straightforward. Anywhere people work where they have to use their phone for work, it's pretty customary that your employer gives you a phone. I, for one, don't think it's a good idea for any employees to be using their personal phone to take pictures that they need to upload onto computers. It actually makes a lot more sense that if they have a device, like a computer issued by the city, it's strictly for city business. It keeps things separate. That's something they can leave in their office when they leave at the end of the day. It's the property of the city. So basically, when they leave that phone there for the next person who comes in. So it sounds incredibly reasonable, and it also sounds like it creates a lot more safety than having people mix up personal information with, sensitive city information. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense, too.
I agree.
Do we, it does make sense. I guess if the department head was here, I would have asked, do we have 7 people out at any one moment using them? And just like my point is there 7 people doing inspections at any one moment? Or we could have 3 or 4 of them in the office that, and then we all share a phone. If there's only a few of us that are out and about, right? If you're in the office, you obviously don't need it. But if
Again-
you're out in the street and you're doing pictures and all this, and then the other, I guess, question I would have is, I guess they just use the phone to do it as opposed to the department giving them a camera. Because if you just buy a camera, right, like a digital camera,
Well,
there would be no service fee related to that.
but this says to the purchasing department to pay for the phones that we just got for all of the inspectors in the department. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many inspectors there are, but I think Counselor Givner is correct. They should not be using their own personal phones, because then they will get mixed.
Yeah.
It makes sense that they would get mixed.
They should have it there.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, I think we have another one of the back sheet answers. It looks like it's going to be 6 or 7 phones. And just the way the department operates, it would be vital for each one to have a separate one, not to be sharing one. For example, one's going to be with the plumbing inspector, one's going to be with the inspector of wires, one's with the zoning enforcement officer, then the 2 local inspectors.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Okay.
So do I hear a motion to?
Motion to
accept the
approve.
treasurer? Approve. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. And then we just have one more item, which is,
Item 9.
yes, Counselor, okay, Counselor Vega could not be here today. And again, this is a tough meeting because it's right before the holidays, but what this is, and you should have information on that. Let me just find it. This is for the ride share and contracted services for planning, $7,712. Those are the bikes. Just trying to find my paperwork here. Sorry for this, but it kind of threw me off when I thought Lisa was going to be here, so that's why I held up on that. Okay, so you should have this item. Oh, the last one, my thing, okay, so this is the ride share contracted services, $7,712 to pay Holyoke administrative fee, share for the Valley Bike Share Program. Then there's an attached invoice, memorandum of understanding, August and September bike data, and Valley Bike press release. That's what's in the package. You should have all that. Okay? Does anybody, I know.
We've had we've had a relationship with them for quite a while, and I know this is the new vendor because the last one went bankrupt.
That's right.
By the way, I was going to ask, I don't know if you're in connection with Aaron or however as you prepare for the 7th, but did we ever end up, did we ever get left holding the bag from the last guy, or is the city entitled to any money if we're aware of? Because I'm assuming we paid and then they went belly up. I'm just wondering if they took any Holyoke money with them along the way.
I don't know, but
I don't know if you
Aaron
talked
said
to
he
Aaron,
would
but-
be available at our next city council meeting.
Okay.
If you want to, or I can have him give you a call. if
Or
you-
just shoot me an email
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe I'll reach out when I.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and that way, if
Okay.
you have a specific question, you can do that, so, but it is a good program, and.
It is, yeah.
I know that we voted the last time that this came up, and I think there was only one no vote.
Yep.
So I would,
This is
like,
just a new vendor, basically.
Yeah,
The fee
yeah.
looks comparable
Yeah.
to what we used to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and again, Aaron would have been here, but with the holidays, it was tough, but with finance, you have to have a meeting. You know, it just, and other people have other meetings as well, so.
Sure.
Anyways, anybody else have any questions, or,
Make a motion to approve.
okay, all those in favor? Aye. And I hear a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
so moved, and wish everybody a happy Merry Christmas, New Year's.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank
Same to you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
All in favor of adjourning, right?
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, bye-bye.
Okay. I think we're gonna leave this meeting. Okay. Ugh. What?
It wasn't that bad.